Exercise 21. In this exercise, we take a look at the surfacing technology built into SolidWorks. And we're going to build this spoon as you see here. Surfacing can be very useful for free form objects, and in this case it's no exception. So let's take a look here. We'll begin by going to File, New, create a new part. And what we want to do is we're actually going to use sketches. Now in the actual book it shows you how to make the spoon using dimensions. But I want to show you how to bring in an actual image and trace around it. So in this case we're going to go ahead and select the front plane and start a sketch. Now the tool for bringing in images is located. You can actually customize the SolidWorks interface a bit by right-clicking in this gray area up here. And down at the bottom, you can't see it on this screen, but go to Customize Menu. Oops, I'm sorry, no, just Customize. Cancel that. You just want to go to Customize, not Customize Menu. Alright, and we're going to go to Commands, and you're going to find under Sketch. Looks like a little picture. These are all the different tools that might not be up on the screen at once, but you could customize your interface this way. When we're looking for a sketch picture, just grab it with the left mouse button and drag it over here to the right and hit OK. Now what we could do with sketch picture is we could click on it and go to our folder on our flash drive, CAD 121 Advanced, Sample Files, and find Exercise 21. In the folder you'll find both front and right side images. Now these are nothing more than, these are actually images of the same spoon, just captured. Remember, you can take in photographs even and bring them in. Anything like this, bitmap, GIF, JPEG, most common files are supported. So I'm going to select the front and drop it in. I'm just going to hit the check mark here. And what I want to do is that this spoon we know is going to be about 6 inches, 6.25 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and take a center line, and off the origin, draw off a center line and dimension it. It's 6 inches. Now what I can do is I could take the image, the art, and double click on it and locate it and shrink it down to size so it fits. So we're scaling it to our size. Again, you want to try and keep it centered. Now what's key here is notice that there is a little break in the surface right here at the bottom. Our midpoint is going to be right in the middle of that edge, so we want to try and match it up to that. And again, there's some just eyeballing this. So that looks pretty good up there at the top. At the bottom here, I'm just going to try to center it a little bit better. And that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to hit the green check mark. So that one's done. I'm going to hit rebuild. I'm going to call that sketch. Rename it to the front image. We don't want to tamper with that one anymore. We actually are going to trace around it. But let's go ahead and bring in the right image. So select the right plane, start a sketch. Go normal 2. And we can still use that same line because we know it's 6 inches for this next sketch picture. So click on sketch picture, select the right side image, and I'll drag that down here and start scaling that down to size. Again, there's a little edge that you want to align to that right there and this will be on the top edge. And then we could rotate it so it contacts this. Over here there's actually a rotate, and if you hit the button, 1 degree is just too much actually, so we probably want 0.5 degrees. And just again double check to make sure it looks good. Drag it in just a little bit more. Oh, actually I still have more room here. So I'm going to drag this out a bit further. Let's change it to 0.7. Yeah, maybe 1 actually would work. There, 1.125 degrees seems to be. Oh, I should have checked the bottom first before I start playing with that. So we'll actually reduce that to probably 1.0. And that's close enough. All right, we'll just hit the check mark there. And now at this point, I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit rebuild. And now we have 2 sketches in here. And this sketch is going to be the right image. I'm going to begin with the front plane now. Start a new sketch on the front plane. Go normal 2. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to capture the side profile. Like I had to rotate this on the drawing so you could see this. But we're going to capture that side profile just with the spline. So click on this edge here and just follow the black line. Now when it starts getting to these very complex little corners, you're going to have to put more points in to enable it to follow your outer edge. Again, when it gets to the tip as well, same type of deal. And then you could connect it to the center there. Actually, make sure it's locked into that point. All right, and just like we learned in some other exercises here, let's go with the centerline trick. And off this end, drag off a horizontal centerline, and hit escape and control select both the spline and the centerline. And make them equal curvature. This will smooth it out so when it comes to the end it's going to look pretty decent. Again, maybe go back and make any adjustments to make this look more like the image if you feel that way. And then at the bottom here, do the same thing. Draw a center line and hold control, make them both equal curvature. And the last thing is make sure you hold control and select the origin and that point and make them aligned horizontal. And that's done. Hit rebuild. And so I'm going to click on that sketch and rename it to the front view guide curve. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to add the outer edges as though we're looking at from the outer edges on the right side. There is a concave and convex curvature on this spoon, so we have to be aware of that when we draw this in. It's not super critical, but it will make it look more realistic if we do this correctly. So I'm going to go to the right plane and start a new sketch. Go normal 2. And again, we're drawing off of this, so we're going this outer edge, which just so happens to be the center black line. So we're going to use the spline tool again. We're going to line ourselves and click and follow that center black line. And remember, once you get closer to these larger radiuses, you have to put more points in so that it follows correctly. And then flat. Try to make it as flat as you can, and then connect it. Even if it's off a little bit like mine is, that's okay. And then do the same thing over here as far as aligning these horizontal. And hit rebuild. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine those two curves. So if we go to Insert, Curve, Projected, select both curves. Actually, we want sketch onto sketch. Make sure sketch onto sketch is selected. Select both guide curves, and you will see a profile appear. You can hit apply. Okay, that's the outer edge guide curve. Now moving along now, we're going to go ahead and create the center of the spoon, which goes on the top, it's going to be convex, and then it turns concave. So for this one, again, select the right plane, start a sketch, go normal 2, and we're going to follow this top edge here with a spline. Line it up to the origin. Okay, so make sure you have the spline tool selected, click on that point, and follow this top edge. Again, when you get closer to that arc, you're going to need several points. Remember, you can always go back and fix it if it doesn't look quite right. And then here it actually starts to transition from convex to concave. So imagine just drawing this offset a little bit, because we're now kind of on the inside of the spoon and the thickness of the metal here, and connect this. Hit escape. Alright, we do not have to align this one because it was already coincident. So we could just hit rebuild. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide those images. So I'm going to right click on this image and click on little eyeglasses to hide it, as well as the right image, and hide those. And you should have something that looks like this. Now we need to draw an arc. Actually, it's not going to be an arc, it's going to be a spline. Do not use an arc, because an arc cannot go from convex to concave inside SolidWorks. So it has to be a spline that looks like an arc. Meaning on the top plane now, start your sketch, and take the spline tool. You're going to draw just a point near the end point there, and then connect it to this point here, and then one more point floating on the right, and hit escape. Take the centerline tool, and at the origin drag down a vertical centerline. Make sure it's vertical, that little yellow line to the right of the pointer there. Right, it's a yellow box with a line in it. Now hit escape after it's drawn, hold control and proceed to select the two endpoints and the center line, and add a symmetric relation between them. And then finally, click on this endpoint of this spline and hold control and select the curve, not the endpoint of the curve, the actual curve itself. And make sure pierce is selected. If you don't see pierce, hit escape. You probably selected the endpoint of that line. That does you no good. You need to select the actual curve away from the endpoint. Hit pierce and apply. Because we pierced that curve, this spline will follow through on this end, basically matching what it sees on the left side. Sometimes I've seen where it kind of veers off a little bit. In this case, it's going to be okay, but if that's an issue, then you might want to make another guide curve for the opposite side or do some mirroring. Okay, now we could hit rebuild, and we're ready to test this. So we're going to go to the surfacing toolbar. Just right click on any tab and find surfaces. Click on surfaces. From here you'll find surface sweep, or swept surface I should say. Click on it. First thing it's looking for is the profile. That's this little, what looks like an arc. Click on that. The next thing it's looking for is the path. The path is in the center. It's the gray geometry. And now finally go to guide curves and select the outer edge guide curve. And it should give you a preview of your spoon. Hit the green check mark. And now we have a thin surface feature of the spoon. The next thing we're going to do here is we're going to put the end on it. So if we go back to the front image here and show it, we need to put this little lip on here. Okay, what we can do is we could select the front plane and start our, actually we don't want to sketch on the front plane, sorry. We're going to offset a plane. Or actually better yet, we could actually sketch on the front or the right. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the right and show that. And we see it kind of goes downwards, so we have to get a point on the right plane that indicates where it's supposed to stop. So we could select the right plane, start a sketch, hit spacebar and go normal 2. Take the point tool, and right at this point is where we want it to stop. Hit rebuild. We might have to make another plane there, but I'm going to see if it actually accepts this. Now I'm going to hide that right image. Okay, now let's see if we can get this to work the way I'm hoping. We go to lofted surface. We can select this edge, and that point is our profile, and it's actually working as I had hoped. If we go normal 2, actually go to the top, I should say, or front, we can see our preview here. Now it's going straight, but there are options under Start End Constraints. If you hit the little arrow on End Constraint, you have some options. You could go normal to profile a direction vector. Actually, let's go with curvature to face. And we could see it's now matching up to the front face. And we're getting a little bit better here. We could actually drag this out and adjust this until we get the look and appearance that we're looking for that point. It might have been beneficial for me to actually drag it out, the point out further. We could always do that later. But by just adjusting this arrow and making sure curvature to face is selected, we can really make it look decent. Let's see if we go with the direction vector. No. Profile. No. Okay, so that's good enough. Hit the green check mark. And we can now hide that front image. And there is our spoon to some extent. I actually want to connect these two surfaces. So I'm going to go to Knit Surface and select the two surfaces and merge entities. Hit the green check mark. So now they're one continuous surface. And one of the things, if we do an analysis on here, if you go to the Evaluate Curvature, you might see some inflections or some things. It gets very tight in these tips or these points. So we might want to actually smooth those out a little bit. One way is to actually cut them. And that's what I intend to do. So I'm going to go to the front plane and start a sketch. Go normal 2. We want to cut that little tip off. Otherwise, we won't be able to thicken it very well. So let's draw a little line across like that. And then drag this up. Make sure it's away from it. And you could do this, or actually maybe an arc would be better. I'm just going to drag this down. If you go with the 3-point arc, you can drag this across and just take off a little bit, shave a little bit of that off there. That's essentially what we're trying to do. I'm going to try and make it even more so. There we go. And then just connect this line to that. What this is going to enable us to do is now we should be able to use the trim surfaces. So under surfaces, we could go hit rebuild, select trim surface, and the trim tool is going to be our sketch, and the keep section is going to be in the center. So we want to keep everything in the center. We want to trim off the excess, and see this. Click on it, hit apply, and now just trim those. Trim the top as well. Okay, now at this point we could go ahead and try and thicken this. Let's turn off the, under Evaluate, turn off Curvature. And then we could go ahead and select the surface knit and go to Insert, Boss Base, and you'll find Thicken. If you have just a surface that's good enough for this exercise, in real life you'd want to thicken it, but sometimes because I give you the liberty to design your own part, you might have some very tight corners and it might be challenging to thicken this. So I'm going to select the surface to thicken, and we can see it's giving us a preview. I'm going to also adjust the thickness so it's only 0.03 thick. And if I reverse it, so it's on the top or in the middle, you could get different effects. In this case, it should be at the bottom, because that's how we drew it. Hit the green check mark to apply, and now you have your thickened spoon. Touch it up a little bit, you could go to the fillet tool under features and put some fillets on these edges to smooth this out a little bit better. I'll make sure it's constant, and bump it up manually until you see it disappear, and then bring it back a little bit, because that's about the largest you're going to get in there for a blend. Also, you can do this side too. In that case, it shut it down, so I'm going to deselect those surfaces just by clicking on them again. I'm going to hit apply, so we smooth out the tip of the spoon there a bit. And now let's go over here and add some fillets. Reduce it to maybe 0.1. See if you could smooth that out a little bit with some fillets. And then finally, type in 0.01, and you can select the outer top and bottom faces. Make it a nice smooth transition all the way around. You could also go to the beach ball here, go to the part, and under appearances find metal. We'll go with chrome and chrome plate, apply, and now we could render it. Photo view, go to Office Products, Photo View 360, Render Tools, and we could go with Integrated Preview. And there's our spoon. Could turn on perspective to give a little bit more realism. And you could also go and put different backdrops on it. That looks pretty neat. And that concludes exercise